Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well, and I hope that during this time of such uncertainty that you are seeking refuge in the Lord, and that you are being constantly reminded of His goodness and of the enduring fact that He does not change and He is not surprised by anything, but that He is ultimately greater than all that is happening. I hope that you are not seeking refuge in the news or seeking refuge in any earthly remedy, but that you're seeking refuge in the Lord. Be praying for those who are governmental leaders and those around us. Be praying for them that they would have wisdom and that we would ultimately come on the other side ready to do the Lord's will as a church and as Christians. I want to share from the scriptures, specifically from the book of Proverbs. I'm going to be sharing from Proverbs chapter 10, specifically verse 3. A unique thing that has happened in this time is we're given a lot more opportunities to stop, right? We particularly as Americans, we live such busy lives, right? We're constantly chasing something. We're constantly on the move to the next thing. I think of the classic cliche of the soccer mom, right? Which if any of you are watching are soccer mom parents, you totally understand this, that life can end up being a constant series of car rides, right? Going from one event to the next, not getting to stop, having no time. Well, suddenly, many of us have a lot more time and paused time than we had prior. And I hope that we use that time wisely and we use that time to seek the Lord and to seek growth in who the Lord is. Proverbs verse 3, and the idea of a proverb, right, was that at the a student would be given the proverb, they would go, they would think, and it isn't just a real quick thought, right? It would be an extended time of contemplation, thinking about what the proverb said. And so Proverbs 10 verse 3 is where we're going to do our contemplative thought here. The Lord will not let the righteous go hungry, but He denies the wicked what they crave. So the Lord will not let the righteous go hungry, but denies the wicked what they crave. Now, at a glance, right, and we by no means claim any form of health, wealth, prosperity gospel, right? We understand that the gospel is not about earthly success. Whatever success is, right? That's such a tenuous word. I hope that we stop using that word, but that we would think of what the Lord is doing as success, right? That our eyes would be set on the Lord. But we tend to think that way, and we need to step back from that a little bit and remember, too, that the Proverbs are not guarantees, right? Proverbs are principles that we live by. They're not promises. They're not guarantees. For instance, train a child in their way, right, is not necessarily because I took my child to church, they're going to be a Christian. It's a principle, right? The more I expose someone to the gospel, the more likely they are to believe than somebody who's not exposed to the gospel. But it's not a guarantee either. And here we have not a guarantee, but a principle. The Lord, right, which is the covenant name, Yahweh, right, that we see the Lord will not let the righteous go hungry. And typically in the Old Testament, that language of righteous is someone who is linked with God, right? Righteousness is not just the things I do, but it's the position I hold with God. And so a righteous person, the Lord, the covenant God, will not let that person go hungry, but He denies the wicked what they crave. And at a glance, it's, well, yes, of course, the Lord of Israel. If you're aligned with Him, He watches over you. But those who are opposed to Him, He does not provide for. Which there's some issues with that. The Lord causes the rain to fall on the righteous and the wicked, right? There's some areas of that that can seem problematic unless we think of it in a slightly different way. The covenant God, the Lord, will not let the righteous go hungry. And I think that second clause really helps us figure out what's going on. He denies the wicked what they crave. Notice that the discussion isn't limited to food, right? The discussion is not actually about food. The food discussion, this idea of appetite, is really just the vessel that the Proverbs writer here is using to communicate an idea, right? Those who seek the Lord, the righteous, will not be hungry, right? If our hunger is towards the Lord and we are trying to follow him, we are trying to be one of the righteous people, we will not be hungry. The Lord will not deny us access to himself. But the wicked, he denies them what they crave. And the wicked aren't desiring the same thing, right? It's not that the righteous and the wicked are both desiring a steak and the Lord is going to give the steak to one and not the other. It's that what they desire is completely different. And that the Lord is saying, if you desire me, if you desire righteousness, I will give it to you. But if you desire anything else, wickedness, evil things are not of the Lord, you'll be denied. This reminds me of Matthew chapter 5, verse 6 in the Beatitudes. So there's a lot of ways that people interpret the Beatitudes. I interpret them as a collective whole, right? That the Beatitudes are describing the godly, the Christian life. What are the qualities that make someone a Christian? Well, they're poor in spirit. They bring nothing to the table, right? I'm not coming to God saying, look how good I am. I'm coming to God saying, no, I need you, right? I have nothing. And key within these, you go down just a few and you find verse 6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, right? So it's this idea of hungering and thirsting. I love that it's not a one-time thing. It's those who hunger and thirst as it continues, right? They're constantly looking. And it's not just hunger now. We've amplified it to hunger and thirst for righteousness. Those who seek God in this way, who seek not the good life, but seek the life that God would have us to live. Those who seek God's ways, those who want him, to be accepted by him, to be known by him, they will be filled. And I love that, right? Or satisfied. They'll be filled. When you seek the Lord, you will find him. And it's not just because he was lost in the woods and you had to go find him. This word that we use in English for find, probably a better way to describe it is when you open your eyes and turn to look at him, you'll finally realize he's right there, right? That when we seek him, when we hunger for him, when there's this primal need within us to have the Lord, to be with him, to be associated with him, he is there and he will satisfy us. Jesus calls himself the bread of life. And I think within this theme of food and of consumption of food and hungering for the Lord, I think that is such a beautiful image that he is the food that we need. When we needed God, God satisfied us by giving us his son. And so as we go through this time, my prayer for you and my prayer for myself is that we will seek righteousness, that we will not just want it, right? That we won't say, there's a big trend right now to schedule your day and to have, and Kristen and I have a schedule for our day. And that's a good thing to have. But my prayer is that we don't just use our Bible as, oh, I'm doing my Bible time. But my prayer is that we will hunger and thirst, right? Like those many raids of the fridge that perhaps you or a family member do. I pray that we will constantly hunger for God's righteousness, and we gain that righteousness only through Christ. So every day, my challenge to us, my prayer for us is that we will seek Christ and that we will seek to be known by him, and we will seek to know more about him, not just because it's what we should do, but because it's what we must do. Just like we must eat and we must drink water, I must know my Christ. So that's my prayer for you, to use this time wisely, to read the scriptures, to seek the Lord in that way. I hope you're doing well, and I pray for us in the coming days that our fellowship in person will be restored very soon. But until then, we will keep walking in the Spirit in this virtual way.